The Odyssey, the final journey home. For 20 long years, Odysseus had been away from home, 10 years fighting beneath the walls of Troy, 10 more wandering across a sea filled with monsters, gods, and impossible trials. His ships were gone, his friends were dead, his kingdom believed he had perished long ago. Only one thing kept him alive, the hope that somewhere beyond the endless horizon, his family was still waiting. But before he could see Ithaca again, he would spend 7 years trapped on an island where time itself seemed to stand still. The island of Calypso. The island of Ogygia was unlike any place Odysseus had ever seen. Crystal waterfalls poured from towering cliffs, ancient forests stretched beneath golden sunlight, birds filled the air with songs that never ceased, flowers bloomed throughout every season, no storms reached its shores, no wars disturbed its peace. To anyone else, it would have seemed like paradise. But paradise can become a prison. The island belonged to Calypso, an immortal nymph of extraordinary beauty. When she discovered the exhausted hero washed upon her shore, she rescued him. She cared for his wounds, fed him, sheltered him. In time, she fell deeply in love. Calypso offered Odysseus everything. You may remain here forever. I will make you immortal. You will never grow old. You will never know pain again. Many would have accepted. An eternal life beside an immortal goddess, freedom from suffering, freedom from death. But every evening, Odysseus climbed the same lonely cliff overlooking the sea. He stared toward the distant horizon, not because he could see Ithaca, but because he remembered it. No palace of gold could replace home. No promise of immortality could replace his wife. No paradise could erase the love he still carried for Penelope. Day after day, year after year, Odysseus wept beside the sea. 7 years passed, yet his heart never changed. The gods finally intervene. Far above on Mount Olympus, Athena watched with growing sorrow. Among all the Olympians, she had always admired Odysseus, not because he was the strongest, but because he never stopped thinking, never stopped hoping. She approached Zeus. "My father," she said, "has he not suffered enough?" Zeus looked toward the lonely island. He knew the answer. Hermes was summoned once again. The swift messenger descended to Ogygia. Calypso greeted him politely, but when she heard Zeus's command, her face fell. "You must let him go," she protested. "The gods always judge immortal women differently. When gods love mortal women, no one objects. But when an immortal woman loves a mortal man, she is punished." Though heartbroken, she obeyed. She gave Odysseus tools to build a sturdy raft, fresh food, water, warm clothing. As he prepared to leave, Calypso asked one final question. "If you knew how much suffering still awaited you, would you stay?" Odysseus smiled sadly. "You are beautiful, and your kindness will never be forgotten. But there is one place where my heart belongs. Home." Poseidon's last revenge. For several peaceful days, favorable winds carried Odysseus toward Greece. Then, Poseidon returned. The sea god had been far away among the Ethiopians. The moment he saw Odysseus crossing his waters, his anger returned. Dark clouds swallowed the sky. Towering waves surrounded the tiny raft. Thunder shook the heavens. The sea rose like mountains. Odysseus clung desperately to broken timbers as the storm destroyed everything around him. For 2 endless days, he battled the ocean itself. At last, the sea goddess Ino appeared. She handed him a magical veil. "Wear this. The sea will not claim you today." Strengthened by divine aid, Odysseus reached the shore of Scheria, the land of the Phaeacians, the last ship. Unlike previous strangers, the Phaeacians welcomed Odysseus with generosity. King Alcinous listened as the weary traveler finally revealed his identity. For the first time in years, Odysseus told the complete story. The Cyclops, Circe, the underworld, the sirens, Scylla, Charybdis, Calypso. The great hall fell silent. When he finished, no one spoke. The king rose slowly. "You have suffered enough," You will go home. The Phaeacians built the finest ship Odysseus had ever sailed. Unlike ordinary vessels, it seemed almost alive, guided by the gods themselves. As Odysseus slept peacefully aboard, the ship crossed the sea overnight. When morning arrived, he opened his eyes. He was lying upon the shores of Ithaca, his home, 20 years after leaving it. The kingdom that had forgotten its king, but Ithaca was no longer the kingdom he remembered. Inside his palace, more than 100 arrogant noblemen had gathered. Believing Odysseus dead, they competed for the hand of Queen Penelope. Every day they feasted, they drank the kingdom's wine, slaughtered its livestock, mocked Odysseus's young son, Telemachus. They believed no one remained to stop them. Athena appeared before Odysseus. You must not reveal yourself. Not yet. With a touch of her hand, she transformed him into an old beggar. His strong body became bent, his hair turned gray, his clothes became worn and ragged. No one recognized the king, the faithful dog. As Odysseus approached the palace, an old dog lay beside the entrance, thin, weak, nearly blind. His name was Argos. Once, he had been the finest hunting dog in Greece. For 20 years, he had waited. The moment Argos smelled his master's scent, his tired ears lifted, his tail moved gently. He tried to stand. He could not. Odysseus looked at his oldest companion. He wanted desperately to embrace him. Instead, he quietly wiped away a tear. Moments later, Argos closed his eyes for the final time, having waited 20 years, only to see his master return. The contest of the bow Penelope had grown wiser over the years. She suspected that not all hope was lost. To delay choosing a new husband, she announced one final contest. Whoever could string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads would become king, one after another. The suitors tried. None could even bend the bow. Laughter filled the hall when the old beggar asked for a turn. The nobles mocked him openly. Telemachus remained silent. He watched carefully. Odysseus picked up the bow. With effortless ease, he strung it. The room fell silent. He drew the string, released. The arrow flew cleanly through all 12 axes. At that moment, Athena restored his true appearance. The ragged beggar disappeared. Before them stood Odysseus, king of Ithaca. Justice returns. The palace doors slammed shut. No one escaped. The first arrow struck Antinous, the most arrogant of the suitors. Panic erupted. The remaining nobles grabbed weapons. Too late, Telemachus fought beside his father. The loyal swineherd Eumaeus joined them. Athena watched from above. One by one, the suitors fell. When the battle ended, silence returned to the palace for the first time in years. The kingdom had its king again, the test of Penelope. Even then, Penelope remained cautious. 20 years had changed everything. Could this truly be her husband? She ordered the servants, "Move our marriage bed." Odysseus immediately protested. "No one can move that bed. I built it myself. A living olive tree forms one of its legs. Only the room around it was built." Penelope smiled through tears. Only Odysseus could have known that secret. At last, the long separation ended. Husband and wife embraced once more. The journey was over. Home had finally been found. The legacy of Greek mythology. The myths of ancient Greece were never merely stories about gods and monsters. They explored timeless questions. What makes a great leader? Can wisdom overcome strength? How should power be used? What is worth sacrificing everything for? Zeus taught that power without justice leads to tyranny. Prometheus showed that compassion often demands sacrifice. Heracles proved that redemption comes through perseverance. Achilles reminded us that glory carries a price. And Odysseus demonstrated that true greatness is not measured by victories in battle, but by the determination to keep moving forward, no matter how long the road. For thousands of years, these legends have survived wars, empires, and civilizations, not because they tell us about the past, but because they continue to tell us something about ourselves. Perhaps that is why even today, when we speak of courage, wisdom, hope, or the desire to find our way home. We are still, in many ways, following the footsteps of the ancient Greeks.